Hello, my name is Jimmy Harper, and welcome to my ITEC 7210 final project presentation. The person I interviewed for this presentation is a former leader in IT, and they chose to remain anonymous. We did discuss several changes that they've led in the past, and they also shared their thoughts on transformation and leadership support. This leader has worked in IT for over 20 years and has done a little bit of everything from writing code to setting up PCs and configuring servers. Most of the experiences they shared with me were from their time leading IT in higher education because that's been the bulk of their experience. But they also did have a brief stint at the beginning of their career in the medical field and shared a little bit of comparison between working in the medical field and then also transferring over to higher ed and then spending their time there. When I asked them about transformative change, especially with technology, they immediately went to leadership support and how important that is to make any change happen. But then they also talked a little bit about understanding the future needs of the organization and in particular the customers. And in this situation, it would be the students and the employees of the organization, since this is a higher ed institution. They shared with me a few changes that they felt like probably caused the most disruption, but also had the biggest impact on the institution during their time leading IT. And those were removing administrative access from employee PCs, incorporating multi-factor authentication on several different applications, and then also introducing a ticketing system so that employees and then also students would have a way to make requests for any kind of IT issues they encountered. With administrative access, there were several employees that would go through and download things without contacting IT because they had the access to go through and do that. That was causing IT to battle several things such as malware, viruses, and other issues. There was some concern from employees that if they didn't have the access they needed to download something for a class or for some other type of thing they had going on, what impact would that might have on students. But it sounds like IT was able to ensure them that they would make sure, as long as there was some pre-planning, they could have that access. As you can imagine, though, this was something that had to have support from the leadership at the institution because it was going to be a new way of doing business. With multi-factor authentication, this was something that this leader knew needed to occur at the institution, but this is also something that the system level was pushing. So that did make things a little easier, and this was kind of walked into several things at the institution. One with the financial system, I believe, was one of the first things that was actually put in with. But then there was also the human resources system that went in right around the same time with that, from what they shared with me. Over time, they did go through and add it to several other applications and said there's, of course, need to add it to more. And this was something that it sounded like employees had a little concern about when it first came around, but once folks saw how easy it was, they could put the app on their phone. It was a click of the button. Once you went to log into something, you could check your phone, make sure it was you, and approve the process. And over the last few years, it seems like employees have really taken to adopting that solution, in not only at work but also in their personal life. The third thing that they shared with me was adding a ticketing system to the institution. In the past, they said that people would just email information technology. Sometimes they would email an employee directly. Sometimes they would email the group. It was very difficult to figure out when somebody was needing an event set up, needed something changed in a classroom, needed something set up for a presentation, of when did it come in and who did it go to, and also had it been resolved. So there was some concern that was shared with me about employees having to log into something and go file a ticket and those type of things, just because that was something that no one had ever done there. But there again, it's proven to be a very easy process. It did cause a little disruption at the beginning to help people understand, okay, you have to stop emailing this particular group or these particular folks, but then you can go over this ticketing system and it will go to everyone in IT and we'll take care of the problem for you. This is something that I said over the course of a few years of being in place that everyone took to very well. And they also went through and implemented a satisfaction survey that could be at the end of every ticket. And they have watched the satisfaction of that during their tenure there continue to go up. So all three of these things that they shared with me had proven to cause some disruption at the beginning and the onset, just because there was concerns of, well, how are things going to work now? But from what they shared whenever they left the IT department itself at this institution, they left it in a much better situation and had a much better culture of people going through processes to get what they needed. As I shared a little earlier in this presentation, when I started talking to this person about transformative change, especially around technology, they went immediately to leadership support and how important that was with anything that they were trying to do. So I thought that I would give it its own slide and talk about some of the things they shared with me for a minute. And one thing they talked about is always sharing information with their chief information officer. This person was in a situation where they reported directly to the CIO, and they said they were constantly in contact with the CIO to say, this is what we want to do, we need to be able to do, this is the way we want to do it, and allowed the CIO to be in a situation to know constantly what was going on, so that the CIO was in a position to take it to the cabinet. And this particular institution, most things are decided at the cabinet level. There is an executive team as well if something needs to go to that level. But the things that were shared earlier with administrative access, multi-factor authentication, and then moving towards the ticketing system, they said the ticketing system was just more of an info item. The other two were, okay, we're making a change on how things have to occur, so we want to make sure we receive cabinet approval on that. And as the CIO and this person presented the case on why these things needed to occur, all the other leadership around the table could definitely see why the change was needed and supported the change. And there was even some conversation that had to go to the president's level with one particular employee to help them understand why these changes were occurring. But they were able to receive support not only from their leader, but also other leaders around the campus on the cabinet and even the president. So it put them in a really great situation to go through and make these changes and make them fairly seamless as they went through the process. A few final thoughts from the interview is we did talk about understanding the future needs of an organization or an institution, just so you make sure that you can serve your customers. And always think about the customers in this situation. Even if you need to do something for a certain protocol, a certain procedure, because it's a best practice, how are you going to put your customers, and in the case of this interviewee, your employees and your students, in a situation to still do the things they need to be able to do while they're there? And if you can figure those things out and you take it to the appropriate leadership, there's a great chance that you will find support for what you need to do. And even though there may be some initial disruption, as you talk through the process and help people understand, this is going to put you in a much better place 6 months, 12 months, 24 months from now. Most people will buy in if they can see the bigger picture and where you're trying to lead your organization. I would just like to close by saying thank you for watching my presentation, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.